Welcome to the Freeborn Podcast for the special Memorial Day edition. And today I'm here with my good friend, Kirsten Jackson.
Also his daughter.
That's what I was forgetting. And today we're going to be talking to her about some topics that she wanted to come on and discuss. She heard our podcast and saw that we have like dozens and dozens of potential viewers. And so she wanted to get in on the action. So we're having her in today, and we're going to be talking about a number of things. How you doing, Kirsten?
I'm good.
I'm glad you came on. I've been trying to get you on, and you're like, no, I don't want to be on. And then you see there's like four viewers.
You're a whole YouTube influencer.
I know.
I'm like, I got to get on this.
Exactly. I have 4 people that that consider watching it. They don't actually watch it, but they've told me they've considered watching it.
Oh, yay.
All right. So you told me that you wanted to come in. You want to talk about a number of different topics like work and college and stuff. So what do you think?
Yeah. So
get right up into the. You gotta get right.
Okay.
You can pull the microphone to you if you want, but you gotta be right there on it.
You're one of many people who continue to move away from him.
Oh.
All my
every
guests.
Podcast, they're already out the door in their car
they're
finishing up.
Yeah.
I have a magnetic personality, but the problem is it's reversed. It pushes people instead of attracts them. Sorry. Yeah, you can just move that around or however you want it.
What was the question?
Yeah, you said you wanted to talk about college and work.
Yeah, I just think it's really important for people who are going to college to have a job. In the meantime, I think it teaches you a bunch of things. I got a job as soon as I turned 16. I went and worked at Dairy Queen, and Mom was reluctant to
well, you had a job before that, didn't you? Or is that...
Well, I worked with you, but it was kind of like...
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, okay. So, no, Dairy Queen was before I started working with you in construction.
Was it?
Yeah. As soon as I turned 16, I went to work at Dairy Queen. I wanted a job. I wanted more money because when I would go shop with my friends, you would hand me, or Mom would hand me $20. And for me, as a 16-year-old, that was fine. But then I got to the point where I was like, no, I need more than $20. And so I went to work at Dairy Queen, and I worked there for over a year. Every job that I've had, I've worked for over a year. And what?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and honestly, the first thing that I think that when you're going for a job and you're in school, setting your priorities straight, like saying, okay, well, for me, when I would go to all my employers, I would say, okay, so first things first is I cannot work on Sundays. And I would tell that to all my employers till this day. I'm saying I can't work on Sundays. I have church that day. And so they say, okay,
do you
great.
tell them all day Sunday or just Sunday mornings?
No, I tell them all day Sunday.
Oh,
and
so you have church and other things then.
Well, at that time, we had church Sunday nights.
No,
remember?
we didn't.
Yes, we did.
Oh, yeah, we did do Sunday nights, didn't we?
Well, no, not at
Yeah,
that
there
time.
was a
we
time.
did.
I know
we
started doing that after Wednesday. We stopped Wednesday and then did Sunday night.
Yes.
Anyway, okay, go ahead.
Okay. And then after that, I would tell them, and I have school. So, after telling about Sunday, they kind of, are like, well, we don't know. I mean, we get busiest on Sundays. And I'm like, I understand that. I said, but I'm a hard worker. And, I tell them my spill, whatever. And then I say, well, I also have school, and that's my priority. I have to get through school. I have to get good grades. This isn't my career. Right? And I think it's important for every
And are they shocked when Dairy Queen is not your career?
They were shocked. I make some pretty good smoothies.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Dairy Queen.
That was a bad time in my life. That was kind of just like a blackout. I just blacked out from 16 through 17 working at Dairy Queen.
Tell us about your blizzards.
Yeah, that lady came in. So I'm working at Dairy Queen, right? And I'm the only person on the floor. And this lady pulls up in the drive-thru super late at night, right before closing. And I'm already flustered, and she's like, I think she ordered like an orange Julius or something like that. So I'm like, okay, got it. Say no more. I got you. And so I'm there, and for some reason my mind just went blank, and I'm mixing like ice and milk, and I'm making it, and I made her a shake. And I'm like, here you go, ma'am. She goes, this is not an Orange Julius. And I'm like, yes, it is. And she's like, no, this is a shake. It has whipped cream on top. And I'm like, oh, right. So then I go back and I made her a milkshake, like a chocolate milkshake. So I go back and I'm like, here you go, ma'am. Have a good day. She's like, no, this is a chocolate milkshake. I want Orange Julius. So then finally my manager, she sees me like rummaging through. And she's like, what are you doing? What is going on? And I'm like, this lady wants a milkshake Orange Julius. I don't know how to make them. And she pushes me out of the way. She makes it and she like gives it to her for free. It was humiliating.
Did she
and then
take
a week
all three
later,
of
I'm
them?
pretty sure I quit. I was like, this is not my calling. This is a part-time job, but I can't even do that.
And so anyways, you were working at Dairy Queen, and then what?
And then I moved over to, that's when I moved over to a diner right here in our hometown, because it's like the only restaurant that was open. And I decided to waitress. There wasn't much of a job interview. I went in, and my best friend was working there, and she said that she needed more employees. So I walked in to eat breakfast, and I was like, you know what, I'm actually tired of working at Dairy Queen. And she was like, well, you have a job if you want it. You have some sort of experience with customer service. So I was like, cool. And she was like, just
I
come
guess
in.
you didn't
I
tell her
did have
about
an interview, yeah. Well,
You didn't tell her about the Orange Julius then, huh?
No, I didn't. Why would I tell anybody? All my employers that. And so I waitressed there for like, I think almost like over 2 years. I was there from like graduation of high school to like a year and a half into college. I waitressed there. And that was my first waitressing job. And at first it was really good money. I was making like $200 a night. And then, business slowed down because they tasted the food. So they didn't want to come back. That's why I'm not naming the diner. But, so I worked there for over 2 years.
And so anyway, then once you're in college and then you're still working, and then what do you think about that? Because a lot of kids think that they can't go to college and work at the same time. Or a lot of parents, I think that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're fortunate enough to have parents that,
that care for you.
That care for you and actually feed you and give you money, then that's cool. You go to college and your parents, they're able to afford to put you through college without you having to work. But I just think, working and going to college is just, you learn so much. I mean, working under an employer from the time you're 16. Oh, okay. I just think you learn so much. You learn the value of money, and to learn that at a young age, is, I don't know. I think it's.
Well, didn't you learn a lot more about how to save money?
Yeah, you learn how to. That's when you learn the value of money. You learn how to save money. If you have someone like Dad, always was very strict on me having to save money. I opened up a mutual account and a savings account, and I put a percentage of money every shift that I worked into my savings, and a larger percent into my checking. That's another subject. I'm not here to talk about money. But, I still had money, and that's because I worked. I wasn't depending. I never once asked my parents for gas money since the day I had a car. Never once asked y'all for gas money.
That is true.
Never. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're fresh out of high school, a lot of my friends lived off of their parents giving them gas money, as little as gas money,
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to go do things with my friends and didn't have to depend on my parents, funding me. So, yeah.
So when you went to college, was it hard to work and go to college at the same time?
But like I said, when you go to your job interview, you have to let them know that your priority is school. And if they don't understand that, that's not the place you want to work at, because they should know that that's not, waitressing isn't a good career for someone. You know what I mean? It's not enough money. You don't get any benefits. But it's a very, very good job to put you through school. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To have in the meantime. So managing it is tough. I mean, I was supposed to be part-time, and there were weeks where I was working 40 hours a week. And I would come home sometimes at like 12:30, 1:30 in the morning. I mean, you were up, and you would see me come home, and I'm like exhausted. And then I'm taking 5 hours of classes, 15-hour classes, which is 5 classes, and they're all, I all have to be there. So I always took 8 a.m.s, and this is what I recommend to all kids that are going through college. None of them, especially my friends, they never wanted to take 8 a.m.s, but I'm like, well, when are you going to have time to go to work? If you're going to school at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're not going to get done.
Why didn't they want
7.
to take 8 a.m.s?
Well, because it's too early. That's the only reason, is because they didn't want to wake up early. So I'd get home at 12:30 at night, and then I would have to wake up. I live far from everything, so I'd have to wake up at, I think it was like 6:30, get ready, go, get there at 8 a.m., and then I got done by like 2. So all my shifts began at 3. And I worked, some weeks I worked 40 hours a week. Yeah, and it's exhausting, and you have to, manage, and you have to have you just have to have time management. Yeah, and learn how to, and I maintained, I think I graduated with like a 3.85, so almost a 3.9, which is almost a 4.0. I just tell people it's a 4.0. But yeah, it is hard. It's exhausting. There were times like I'm home and I'm just like, had a mental breakdown because I was so tired. My feet were exhausted, but because I know waitressing, I think people can do it blindfolded. I think it's a very, very easy job.
I think that a lot of them are doing it blindfolded.
Okay, but except me. Okay. But I think the summer that I worked for you was right after the diner. I took a sabbatical. It was during that diner job.
Wasn't it when you were in high school still, though?
Yes. Yeah, and that was
You
when
took
I was
a
working at
sabbatical? Meaning I
You
told you?
told me to take a sabbatical.
I told you had
You
to work.
forced me.
Yeah, I remember you crying, bawling your eyeballs out.
I had a good thing going for me, and then you just came in like a wrecking ball, and you were like, "You're gonna put on a hard hat and steel-toed shoes and come work with me in the summer." I think it was in the summer,
Yeah,
right?
it was all summer.
Yeah, so it was stupid hot. A bunch of men. I was the only girl. Yeah. It was interesting.
So then, was it worse or better than you thought it would be?
You know what? I think it was better than I thought it would be. I wasn't used to getting up at like 4 a.m. sometimes, when we would go to Austin. At times we went to Houston, but I think I made the most amount of money that I ever have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So it was really good money. And you have to put that in perspective. This is a lot more tiring and it takes more out of you, but look how much you're making.
Right.
You know what I mean? Until you see the money, you don't realize but what you have, isn't my dream job, but shoot, I can afford to actually put savings into a new car, and so it pays off. But yeah, working construction.
So we should expect to see you this summer
with a new car?
No, at work with us.
Oh, absolutely not. Oh no.
Do you think you learned anything by working in construction?
I think, yeah, but it wasn't learning things that apply to
Well, I don't mean about construction, I mean about life.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know.
So the reason why I wanted you to work in construction is because it's a man's job. And meaning that it's all men that work there.
Yeah.
I don't mean that only men can do it, but it's 99% men working there, and they're rough.
Yeah.
And it's the job is rough, the people are rough, everything about it's rough. Not the roughest, there's other stuff, but it is, right? And I wanted to be sure that you had the confidence in life that you could compete with men at any level.
Yeah.
That was why I did that.
Yeah, and it is challenging, of course, women don't have the strength that men do, and so there were times where I wasn't able to pick something up or, reach, high enough to screw something in or whatever, but you never let me, even since when I was a little girl, you never let me kind of sit down and paint my nails while y'all were out working outside. Most of the time, I was having to go over there and help with what I could, and so I knew that was going to be your mindset regardless, I wasn't just going to sit there and hand y'all things. Once I started working with you, I was doing exactly what your men were doing, if I could. You taught me one time and I said, okay, cool. I was handling partitions. I was helping Nolan set up the jacks and put the partitions on there. And I was doing everything.
Mm-hmm. And who drilled the straightest holes in the crew?
I did.
Yeah, that's right.
Obviously. I read somewhere that women have better eyesight than men.
I read
and
that too.
that's why we like when I go out shooting. What are those things called?
The skeet.
The skeet. I shoot them. I always shoot them better than Garrett has, or who my boyfriend is. I should have not said his name. Oops.
Sounds like someone's weak.
And then that's when he told me, he's like, well, I heard women have better eyesight than men. I'm like,
okay, Garrett.
okay.
How did it go? You worked with her for a while.
Yes.
You took her out of the out of town job.
Nolan loved my company. He did. He was so excited when I started working. He's like, Kirsten, I finally have someone to talk to. Yeah. I had a good time working. But then when I worked with Dad, he would take me out for lunch and pay for me. He always took me out for lunch.
When I worked with Kirsten, she paid for me.
Yeah, I did. He had to always use the restroom as soon as he
I know that trick. And then he has that one arm that's shorter, and he's the one he reaches for the check with.
He's like, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went a lot better than I expected it to be. Yeah.
Well, you came back and worked another time when you couldn't, remember you weren't getting enough hours or something?
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, I needed more money, and so I went back and worked a little bit.
But then that was when we were real slow. It didn't work out too well that time. Yeah, we were real slow for like a year or a little less. So once you're, working as a waitress, I've always thought that it ought to almost be law that every kid in America should have to work as a waiter.
Yeah.
What do you think you learn by working as a waiter?
Well, that's where, when you're working as a server, you just kind of learn you're right there learning customer service. Their whole experience depends on you. You're dealing with their money. If you mess up their money, that's on you. When they sit down, it is your job to make sure that they come back so that your restaurant makes more money, which is going to ultimately benefit you, right? Mm-hmm. And so
that's actually very true, because I'll go to a restaurant that has terrible food.
Yeah.
But if
the service is great.
if the service is amazing, then I'm just going to go back.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of, mostly with crappy food, it's cheap,
Yeah.
So I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go in and it's great food, but the service is terrible, it just makes you not want to go back. Regardless if the cooks are doing great, and they're thriving, but if the frontline workers are, on their phone, they're not paying attention, whatever. It just makes customers not want to go back, and everyone knows that because we all go to restaurants. Servers go to restaurants. They know what it's like to have bad service. So why not just give them good service and have them come back? I mean, some people, that's working in the waitressing business is where I first learned that not all people are nice, right? Because my whole family has always gone to restaurants, been so nice. So I just expected that of everybody, honestly. Once I went into the waitressing business, but then I learned real quick that people were not raised that way, and they are rude. I mean, and it doesn't even matter if the service was good or not. If they didn't get, if their coupon wasn't working, or they don't have salt or pepper on the table, and they're just yelling at you because they want someone to yell at or whatever. So having to deal with that and having to just, have poise and say, I'm really, and having to apologize for something that's so stupid, that's the worst part, is when people are just being so irrational and so dumb. And having to apologize for it, that's the worst part about serving.
Do you ever say, I'm sorry you're being irrational and stupid?
I don't know, because I still have a job. See, my managers don't care. I mean, they understand, they've been there. Most managers who work in who are managing a restaurant have been service before, so they understand. But they're like, look, you cannot be petty with your tips. You cannot be mad that, they're being irrational. This is what you signed up for. And it's true, some people are, so rude, but they'll leave me, 30% tip. And it's like, whatever. As long as you give me your money, I'm fine with it. And some people don't, I've had people come in, their bill was like $130 and they left me $5. And there was one time I was so fed up with it, and I was working at Roadhouse and I was serving, and their bill was $130, and the guy wanted to pay the whole bill. So I said, cool. And usually that means I'll get a pretty decent tip. Well, then he hands me like a $5 tip. And I was so fed up with it, and I went over there and I was like, here you go, sir, and handed it back to him. And he said, no, this is for you. And I said, no, I know, you keep it. And I walked away, and I was shaking. I was so mad, and he just like looked at it. Yeah. I was mad. And I won't ever do that again. That wasn't right, but at the same time, it's like, you have to learn that. I hope that he kind of like learned like, oh, maybe this wasn't a big enough tip. This was, 3% of what the bill
What percentage
was.
of people do you think are rude in restaurants, customers?
I would say about 30%.
Really? That
Yeah.
many? Mm-hmm. And is it like, and as far as like age demographics, is it usually young people? Is it old people?
Honestly,
or is it
it's
just
it's
all
it's
kinds
everybody.
of people? Really?
Yeah.
And so they're
sure.
like yelling at you, or they're just angry, or
They're not. I've rarely had people that just yell at me. It's more people that just are very rude. Don't look at me when I'm taking the order. When men and women. So the funniest part is when a couple comes in and the guy has his head down and the girl's ordering for him.
and why do they do that?
I don't know.
Is that like common?
Yeah, and you can ask any waitress, and that happens.
So what if it's a guy waiter?
If it's a guy waiter, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I'm sure that they both speak, but I don't know. For some reason, women go in with their husbands or their boyfriend, and they want to have like a hold on him, and so they're ordering for them.
And they have their head
And
down?
they have their head down like a puppy. And so there's times where I'm like, okay, and how does he want his steak cooked? Okay, and what 2 sides would he like? Just to like piss him off, because I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, are you joking? It's so frustrating. And then there's been times where it's the other way around, and then I'm just like, why do people have to order for each other? Like, I understand if it's a 2-year-old kid that can't speak, but if they're like, I don't know. I'm going to get worked up talking about it, so I'm just going to stop. I just don't understand these people that do that. It's so frustrating. But yeah, working, especially for women, I recommend, or girls that are about my age and are going to school, I highly, and I tell all of my relatives who are coming about my age, work in the restaurant business. It's flexible hours. You can let them know I have to have off this day and this day to go to school or do homework, and they give it to you. You get free meals.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's the flexible hours is the best part about it.
And you can once you have just a little bit of experience, you can go to any restaurant,
Any
really.
restaurant, and they're always hiring.
Always.
They always need servers because they're always leaving, going to do things, and then they need, people to hire. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's perfect. And I think guys too. I have a bunch of guys that work at Roadhouse, and they make very good money. I think typically girls make better money serving.
Really?
Just because people like to see, girls come up to their table and take their order or whatever. But if you're a guy, I mean, there's a few guys that I work with that make really good money. Sometimes better than me because they're just better
So what would you say are a couple tips for waiters who are starting out to be able to maximize their tips, maximize their money?
For all waiters?
Yeah, like if you were talking to someone who was just starting out wanting to get into being a waiter and tell them, look, here are some things you can do that will maximize your tipping.
Well, first and foremost, like, you have to greet them as soon as they sit down. I think there's like 15 seconds, a 15-second window that you have to greet them. And I realize there's times where you're so busy, but if you just get there and you say, hi, look, like if you're in the weeds is what is a expression that
I know what it means.
In the weeds. Okay, whatever.
It goes beyond. It's not just in the restaurant business.
Really?
No, that comes from golf.
In the weeds?
Yeah, when you're in the weeds, when you're like swamped
and the weeds.
Yeah, golf is where that comes from.
Really?
Yes.
I'm in the weeds.
Yeah, that means you're in trouble. We say that when we're
yes, exactly, when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm so far in the weeds, I'm like in the forest looking for the weeds. I'm like, I just want to get in the weeds. No, so yeah, as soon as you come up to your table and you say, look, my name is Kirsten. I'm going to be taking care of you today. I'll get y'all's drinks order, but I'm so sorry, I'm swamped. I'll get to you as soon as possible. I'm going to get your drinks out. And that's the first thing you got to do is just get their drinks out. And then they'll understand. Right away they understand you're busy. You're not just like letting them sit there for 10 minutes wondering where's my server. Mm-hmm. So if you just get to them, right? And then you give them their drinks, and then you say, you always want to offer them appetizer. You want to offer them dessert. You want to offer the highest.
Yeah, you want to run the bill up.
Yes, exactly. You want the bill to be as high as possible. So when they order baked potato, would you like it loaded? It's so good. They say yes, cool, 99 cents.
Well, see, that's one thing that a lot of what you're saying right there. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's one thing that I find that a lot of servers don't do. that they'll like, do you want your baked potato loaded?
Yeah.
But they don't sell it.
And it doesn't make sense because we're not getting paid minimum wage. We're getting paid $2.13 an hour, most servers. And so you're literally depending on their tips. So why wouldn't you want the bill to be as high as it can?
What I'm saying is they don't sell that, like you just said. You want it loaded because it's so delicious.
Yeah.
Hardly ever will they tell me that. They'll
Yeah.
they'll like say, do you want it loaded? Like they have to ask.
Yeah.
But not like they want to ask.
Yeah.
So I was
But
just.
when times are rough, that's when I really am like, you want it loaded, I know you do. That's
You
when I
do?
really
Does
get,
that work?
yes. And then, you have to offer them alcohol because drinks are expensive.
Yeah.
A glass of wine is very expensive, whatever it is, right? Depending on where you go.
And the
But
restaurant
that's
makes
where
a lot of money for that too.
exactly. That's where you're going to get the most amount of money usually, is offering drinks,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so anyways, sorry. So then.
you as a Christian is feeding their addiction, huh?
Oh, yes. If you want a cold one with that, sir, it's very good. I just turned 21, so when I now bartend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when when my manager asked me to bartend, I'm gonna kind of veer the subject, but I'll get
That's
back.
fine. No,
I'll
it doesn't
flip
matter.
on. Okay.
We don't have a subject.
So my manager asked me like 4 times, do you want to bartend? And I kept telling him no, like I don't. To be honest, like I don't think that'll sit well with my conscience, knowing that I'm requesting off on Sundays because I go to church, and then I'm on Saturday night bartending, whatever, right? So I told him no, whatever, and then eventually I talked to like you and Mom, and y'all were like, well, and it's bartending makes you the most amount of money, like you would not believe. Okay, it's really good money. These bunch of people come all by themselves, have nowhere to put their money, so they just drink beer and then leave you like $100 tip. Not always, but
Right.
yeah. So I bartend, and then that's when I really. So I did that when I was like 20. I started when I was 20, and so people would be like, "Oh yeah, like have you tried this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's so good." But they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But then if I were to ever try a drink, I would get kicked out of the bar because I'm not 20. I wasn't 21.
Right.
So I would just have to make stuff up all the time. I'm like, this is my favorite drink. It's so good. You want to add the Patron kicker? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh, yeah. And they tried, and they're like, ew. Yeah.
Anyways, going back to where you were, I was asking you about what you can do, what a waiter can do to maximize their tipping. So one was
So you
greeting
have to
them right away.
offer up everything you can.
And offering dessert is big for restaurants too. Do restaurants
it's
push
hard.
that? Do the managers tell you to do that?
Not at mine.
Okay.
Just because we only have 3 desserts. Yeah, which is interesting because we have a big menu, but we only have 3 desserts. But yeah, you want to offer them. I don't typically offer them desserts just because we don't have a large selection, and I'm not a fan of any of them. So,
Right.
if there was one that was like amazing, then I would, but yeah, just being like friendly. And for me, it's just making like friendly conversation. Even if it's just like, wow, I love, your earrings or whatever. I love your outfit. And just kind of open them up and let them know, like, I'm human. I'm not a robot. I'm not just here to like hand you food, walk away, take your
Right.
money. Like I'm here to conversate with y'all. You know what I mean?
Converse.
Conversate? Is that a word?
No.
It's not?
You've been saying that for a
How
long
often
time,
do you
huh?
say that?
I normally say converse, but I thought it was conversate at that time. I'm embarrassed. I'm just kidding. I usually have a word dictionary when I'm talking to my dad. I'm like this.
So then going back to college, so you went to junior college, which was another thing that you were like in tears
Yes,
about.
that's what I know. I was so mad about you. Well, at first you were like, no, you're going to junior college. And then I started looking in. I applied to UTSA, got in, whatever, and looking at other colleges. And what the problem was, especially for me, is all my friends were going to universities. And they were all going to stay in a dorm. They were all going to get that college experience. And I was so mad that I knew I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it, right? So I talked to you, and you were like, okay, like, you can go to UTSA. You got in, good for you, but if you go to UTSA, you're going to pay half the tuition, right? And then that really just put things in perspective. I was like, I cannot afford to dish out $3,000 to $4,000 a semester and work. Like, I can't do it. And so when your parents tell you, okay, fine, but you're paying for this amount, I'm pretty sure all my friends would, no, I just won't go to school because you don't realize how much it is. College is so expensive now. And when you're the one having to pay for it now, which I keep referring to my friends just because that's my only reference, but their parents were able to like put them through. So I was like, you know what? No, like, I'm just going to suck it up, go to junior college. I literally get the same prerequisites as they're going to get, but they're paying 10 times more just to get that college experience. And you know what? I think it was like half of them came back.
Really?
Because they hated the dorms. They hated it. Yeah.
And so did they go to junior college when they came back?
Yeah,
or what did they do?
Yeah, one of them ended up going back to junior. She went to junior college. And then my best friend, she came back just because it was just so too expensive. And her parents were like, we can't keep paying for this. So, yeah. But I went to junior college, and I would do it a million times over, and I would recommend anybody going
So you're not bitter
college.
over that?
No. I told you I was grateful that I went to junior college.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got the same prerequisites, and it's a smaller classroom. You have more one-on-one with your professor, and it's so much closer, cheaper, whatever it is. Yeah, and I commuted.
Yes.
I commute. I did not want to live in a dorm. And I mean, of course, when you go in junior college, you have to commute. They have no dorms, whatever. But, yeah. But that just gave me more opportunity to save money.
Yeah.
For when I move out and I don't live like in a little shack on the side of the road, which is what I would have lived in if I was so, strong on having to move out, just because everyone else around me was doing it. It just seems to be the norm. As soon as you graduate high school, you have to go to college, you have to move out, you have to live on your own. And it's like, why? Why wouldn't you just be smarter about it, stay at home, go to school, work, and then save money?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
And it's weird that that's not more of a mentality that Americans have.
Yeah, for some reason, even it's not just kids, but even the parents think that it's very good for their kids to be sent off to college and get this experience.
Yeah.
That they're getting an experience
Yeah.
is very valuable.
But that's what I'm saying. When you're working, you get experience that's going to benefit you with your career, because you learn what it's like to work on an employer and what they're looking for, and you apply it to whatever career you're going to. And then you can let them know, look, I may not have went to a university right out of high school, but I worked 3 jobs and I never got laid off. I never got a write-up. I was hardworking. You can ask my employers. I never showed up late, and see how they respond to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So.
And that's huge. As an employer myself, it's huge that people show up on time every time.
Yeah.
Never miss, never call in, and show up on time.
I have a problem, though, where I have anxiety. I have serious anxiety if I show up late. So I will leave. I live 30 minutes away from my job. I'll leave an hour early just to beat the traffic, which there never is. So I sit there on my phone for 30 minutes, but I would much rather sit in my car for an hour than be a minute late, because I just get the worst feeling in my body. So there was one time, I think.
It wasn't your first day?
No.
That one?
This was just in the middle of the year I was working. So it wasn't even that big of a deal, but there was so much traffic. There was an accident, and I'm running late for work, and I'm like, no, this is the worst thing that could happen to me in my whole life. And so there's so much traffic, so I decide to and I'm freaking out. I'm shaking, get all shaky, and then I exited off. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take the back roads. Well, I take the back roads, and then a train comes, and I get stuck behind a train, and I just start crying. I'm like, no, they're gonna hate me. And I just called them, and I was like, I'm gonna be late. I'm so sorry. They're like, okay, we're slow. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I just was just so devastated that I was late.
And were you late?
Yeah, I ended up being 10 minutes late. But I got there, and nobody even noticed. When I walked in, I was like, my tail's between
You
my
walked
legs.
in with shame?
Yeah, I walked in with shame. Nobody even cared. They're like, you have this table. I'm like, okay. Yeah, it was crazy. I just hate being late. But even if you aren't that kind of person, just always be on time. That shows more to the employer than anything, Yeah. Knowing that you're dedicated to you're punctual. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that is a good thing to have, to be able to tell. Like if I'm able to ascertain from somebody that I'm thinking of hiring, that they have that type of attitude, that they're going to be at work every day, because that's a big problem with my work, is that I have people that just, for whatever reason, don't show up. They're sick or whatever they say, and maybe they're a little sick. I don't know, but in my mind, if you're not like, well, if you have a pulse, it's like, how sick can you possibly be?
Yeah. I know.
So,
what always kind of annoys me, I don't know about how it would work with customer service, but for construction, they call in sick, like if they're less sick at home than they would be at
well, yeah,
work.
that's my thing. It's like, I don't feel well. Well, can you not feel well at work? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, to me, it's like I've never missed work because I was sick. And it's not because I'm never sick. It's just like, what am I going to do at home?
Yeah.
I'm going to be sick at home. So unless I'm sick, like where I can't stand up, I'm sick where I'm like woozy and I'm like falling over.
Yeah.
And even then I usually will go to work, because it's like, I'll just be sick here. I might as well be sick making money.
Making money.
Yeah. If you're making money, it makes sickness not feel so bad.
Some people it does. Some people it makes it worse. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've never called into my my job ever. Never. It just when you're working for an employer, like they have always think about it this way. I'm like they have a family. They're working. They depend on us showing up to work.
That's right.
That is where their money is if we show up. And the fact that so many people that I work with have the mentality of like, oh, I'm just going to call in, then that messes up everything. Everything. I have to pick up more tables. I'm, whatever, I get more money, but it's like, what about the managers?
Yeah, no, it just messes everything up. Yeah, absolutely.
And I understand there are times, whatever, family emergency, something happens, something comes up, you call in, whatever. But so many people do it and it doesn't, and then now it has less meaning to it. When you call in, you're like, oh yeah, you're cut or whatever, someone died. And it's like, we won't believe you anymore because so many people do it now.
Yes.
It's like, now we can't believe you because you've called in so many times before.
Well, I have people call in and they go like, my mother's in the hospital. And I'm like, okay, so I need to be there. I'm like, is the doctor asking for a consult? I mean, why do you need to be there? What are you going to do? It's not like she
wasn't on her deathbed.
No, and it's not like they just took her. She's just in the hospital and they're going to sit there. It's like, why?
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't your mother going to have medical bills that need to be paid?
Yeah.
You need to go to work.
But it's not something that he can do after work?
Yes, he can do it before work. He can do it after work.
Yeah.
The thing about a lot of employers, since I manage and normally I'm more in charge of the day-to-day work, I'm more susceptible to like our employees when they go to work and they say, look, I'm going to go to work, but hours close at 5:30 for visiting. Can I leave at 3? Normally we leave at 3:30. Leave at 3:30. You have that.
Yeah.
Or if they come in and said, look, can I take a long lunch? Go ahead, take a long lunch. Be back ready to work after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's better than just calling in, messing everything up, because we don't have a very big crew. So,
Well, but that's the thing. No business does. Employees think that businesses have like employees sitting in a back room somewhere just waiting to come out and fill spots.
Yeah.
And no business, no matter how big they are, they don't have extra employees. They have as many as they need.
Yeah.
And if they have a few extras because they're counting on people not being there, so everyone's getting paid less for it.
When that schedule comes out and you're scheduled to work these days and every service sees that, those are the days they're working. And if they're not set to work on the days that they're off, they're not coming in. So someone calls in and they call they call other employees, can you please come in on your day off? No.
Do you go in when they call you?
I that hasn't happened to me in a while, but there's been times, of course, where I just come in. Yeah. Unless I'm in school.
Right.
Right. But yeah. Man.
So then we also wanted to talk to you. I wanted to ask you about dating. Mm-hmm. And should I shoot your boyfriend?
No. No. Yeah, I started dating. You didn't let me date until I was a junior, I think, in high school. Yeah. and you had like, I guess requirements or I don't know, certain like standards that I had to meet when it came to dating. So I couldn't date until I was a junior, and I didn't. And I don't know why nobody believes me when I say that, but I really didn't. I mean, of course there were like juvenile crushes, whatever it was, right? But never to the point where we actually went on a date, whatever, picked me up. Never. And so I met Garrett, and that was when I was a junior. And so I was like, okay, I'm ready to date. Let's go. Who wants me? And crickets. So finally Garrett walks along. And that's when I started dating Garrett. He met y'all. He came over to the house, met y'all. We went to like a restaurant, came back home. Had to be home at a certain time. We never were allowed in my room, was not allowed in his room. And then, what else was it? Yeah, that was pretty much it. And so we started dating and bringing him to church. Yeah. And that was a big thing.
Ripping the fishing pole out of his hands on Sunday.
Yeah. 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 But the past year, he's been so, attentive.
Attentive?
Well, I don't know what you're trying to say.
Attentive.
Are you trying to say he's attentive like he listens, or he attends like he goes?
No, attentive like he listens.
Yes.
Yeah, attentive.
Well, he's always been attentive.
Oh, always. Yeah.
I don't know if he's just humoring me. Or if he's interested, but he's always been very attentive. He's very well behaved. He's very well mannered.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Yeah, you should learn. Well, I won't say it.
No, go ahead.
Well, we always think we should tell him that if he were our son, he wouldn't marry you.
Yes, that he could do much better than me.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yes. I'm a very lucky person because he's way out of my league. He's like, he's worked hard. He's incredibly intelligent. He's good with his money. Yeah, he's great. And then I think that's what really. You want to date someone that your parents are going to like, like girls my age, they always want to date someone for some reason. Maybe it's just my friends, but I think it's every girl want to date someone who their parents just seem to hate. And I'm like,
yeah, that is
crazy,
interesting.
Right?
Yeah, it is crazy. But I don't know. I think it's maybe because a lot of kids want to rebel against the values of their family. They feel like if they follow. And I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, so I'm just guessing. I'm just shooting in the dark. But it seems to me that they kind of this need to establish themselves as their own person, and they think the way to do that is to divorce themselves from the values they've been given as children. And they think that's the spot, that's the place where I need to differentiate myself. If I don't do it there, they can't think of any other way to make themselves their own person other than to reject the value system that they've been given. So then they go to all that work and they spend a lot of time in their life doing that. And then they end up with this life that's messed up. And I'm not even talking about Christian values.
Yeah.
These are just your family values. Every family has a value system, even if it's not compatible with Christianity. Christianity has a very particular value system, a very specific one, but all families have a value system that defines that family. Like our family, I think, one of our value systems is the way we treat work, right? We're all our family from, going back generations. I'm not saying no other family works, they're not hard workers. It's not a comparative thing. Right. So it's not like saying our family works, no one else does. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
we're just one of those families that value hard work.
Work is a big part of our value system, built into our system, and so every family has those kind of things. Some families, it might be education. That may be their thing. That's, they all go to college. They all have degrees. They all are in and that would be their value system. And you'd have other ones that are into art or whatever. And there could be many families into the same things, but your family will have a certain way in which they see things, in which they act. And you'll have kids, you'll have young people who will think, I need to be my own person. The only way I'm going to do that is by rejecting the value system of my family so that I can be my own person and not be identified with them. That's an incredibly dangerous thing to do.
Yeah.
I want to be just like you.
Thank you, son.
Should I go? Y'all think y'all's on space? This is all the time. Every day.
Hey, leave him alone.
He's like, I love you, Daddy.
Love you, Daddy.
Yeah, when I started dating, I was like, you know what? I think it's, and this I would tell any girl that's starting to date, I'm like, you need to have standards and you need to set them high, right? You can't just have low standards. You're going to get low, you're going to have someone that's not whatever, right? So I started looking for someone and I was like, okay, well, he needs to be hardworking, he needs to be smart, and he needs to be a Christian. And those were my 3 standards, right? So if he wasn't a hard worker, if he wasn't smart, I could not date someone who was dumber than me. I will never do that. And I've always said that since I was like 15. I was like,
and why is that? Because I mean, you could get away with all kinds of stuff and like pull the wool over his eyes. And
I don't know. I don't know if it's just because because of you or whatever it is, but I want to be intellectually, tested. I want to be challenged. And I couldn't date someone where I had to explain to him grammar.
like
Basics
what,
of grammar, like the twos,
conversate
twos,
is.
twos, and you're.
Let me explain what
Okay, I'm actually
conversation
very good with my grammar. That's why I can't date anybody who's dumber than me. Because sometimes I have blonde moments. But and he had to be hardworking. That was like one of the biggest things. I could never date a guy who just sits in front of his TV and plays video games. That's not. And I don't know if it's because we never did that. We were never allowed to have video games. I'm not used to, sitting around watching my brothers play video games. Maybe that's why, but it's just unattractive to me. I'm like, what are you doing with your life? Do you even have money in your savings account? Like, what's happening?
And Garrett, he's done the same thing. He's gone to school and worked.
Yeah, so he actually went straight to university.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because, we both had dual credit hours, which is the college hours you take in high school.
Right.
That are for free.
Right.
Which I recommend every high school takes dual credit because it's free.
And take all the ones you can,
all the ones you can. It's challenging, but if you're getting it for free and you're getting it out of the way, whatever, take it. So we both did that. So he ended up going to UTSA, and he takes out student loans every semester, okay? And I'm not sure how much they are, but he takes out a percentage of student loans, and he works through college. And then by the end of semester, with the job he has, the amount of money he makes, he pays it off by the time he's done. So he is going to graduate. He's working on his last semester. This coming semester is his last.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to graduate with a bachelor's, and he has no student debt.
Very good.
Yeah.
See, I like that about him.
Yeah, me too.
That's very good.
Yeah. And if I would have done that with the jobs that I have as waitressing, well, it's very hard. I don't make near as much money as
he has a very good
as
job
he
at
does.
what he's doing.
Exactly.
And he makes a lot of money in the summer
Yes.
doing that job.
Yes.
HVAC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he works for an AC company, and not a lot of people can do that.
No, that's
or
brutal
want
work.
to do that,
That's
especially in
brutal
Texas,
work.
working in an attic at 100-degree weather.
Yeah, no, it's brutal.
Yeah, it's very hard. But, he makes a lot of money, and he honestly would rather do that than any other job because of,
Well, he's also
it
very
pays through
good
college.
at it.
Yeah, he is.
He's very skilled at it.
He's very mechanically
Inclined.
Enhanced.
Otra vez.
Otra vez, con mis palabras. Can you edit that out? that won't be on there, right?
No, we'll edit that out.
Yeah, he's very mechanically inclined.
Yes.
Yes. His brain just works that way.
Uh-huh.
He just thinks wires. That's just the only thing he thinks about. Just wires. No, I'm joking. But he was the one that introduced me into fishing and hunting and all that. And I love it.
You do?
Yeah.
So
we go dove hunting. I've never had been dove hunting until I started dating him. Because he's not, hick or
2
hillbilly, but
years,
he's
and I've
country.
never
Well,
gotten
I
an
remember
invite.
he has his big belt
Shut
buckle.
Not anymore.
That
he got rid of that belt buckle.
That uses as his redneck ID. It has his name on
Yeah,
it.
he flashes it at
Yeah,
people.
he's
You know who it is.
you have ID, and he's flashes his buckle.
Yeah. No, he don't wear that anymore. He's country, but he's not hillbilly, one tooth. But he introduced me into dove hunting, and I loved it. I love dove hunting.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's so fun.
Why is it fun?
I don't know. I love shooting a rifle or a shotgun. I mean, I like having it in my hands. It's dangerous.
And they're not scared when you have it in your hands?
No, I have pretty good aim.
Yeah?
Yeah. But when you go dove hunting, you have to clean the doves.
Mm-hmm.
So you, and I was never afraid to do that. And I think that's why people were like, how can you be a dental hygienist looking in people's mouths? I'm like, I've literally been wrist deep in a dove's intestines. Like, I'll be okay. You just like pluck out the feathers, and then I'm going to walk y'all through how to clean a dove.
Do it. Tell us how to do
so you
it.
plug out the feathers around the stomach, and then you have to stick both your thumbs into the, I guess it would be like the pelvic area, sort of. You have to break that bone, the rib cage.
Mm-hmm.
You stick your thumbs in and break it open. And then that's when you tear out the breast. Yeah.
And that's all you take of the dove, right? Just the breast.
Yeah, you just want to take out the breast, but sometimes they're still chirping. This is so terrible. Oh my goodness. People are going to be like, what is going on? Yeah, so sometimes they're still chirping, so you have to break the neck. So
How do you
one
break the
time,
neck?
Garrett, I can't break the neck.
You can't?
I can't. It's too sad. So one time it was still chirping, and Garrett's like, look away. And I'm like, no. And he's like, look away. And I'm like, okay. Well, I turned, and you just have to grab the neck and throw it on the ground. You just have to slam it as hard as you can, holding the neck. And that's how you take off his head. Decapitate it.
And didn't you go coon hunting?
Yeah, I went raccoon hunting at this ranch not too long ago. And we were driving around in the Ranger, and it has to be like at night because you have to be able to spot their eyes. They just glow, little beady devil eyes glow in the trees. And so they're walking around, and they shoot a couple, and then they're like, well, would you want to shoot one? And I was like, I don't know. Like, what do they ever do to me? I'm not going to just shoot an innocent raccoon. They're like, they're not innocent. Like, they eat all of the deer's food. We have to spend like $500 on food because they just destroy it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of mean. So I have to have like a reason to shoot the raccoon. Okay. So I go over there, and they're like, okay, he's right there. And so I'm like, okay. And so I'm doing it, and I'm like, no, I can't do it. Like, he's looking at me straight in the eyes, like begging me not to shoot him. And Garrett's like, you don't have to do it. And then I was like, bah! Just shot it right in the face. And the guys that I was with, they were like, we've never been able to shoot him and shoot a raccoon and immediately him fall. Like, we always have to shoot him at least twice. And I'm like, am I a psycho killer? Like, does this mean I'm a serial killer? Yeah, but that was pretty fun.
You also went hog hunting, didn't you?
Yeah, but I wasn't able to shoot him. No. Because they run fast. I mean, they don't run incredibly fast, but they're running in circles.
And are you guys like chasing them on a truck or
yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you just jump out. Yeah. Well, at the ranch that we had, they set up like a pen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we basically hog trap them, whatever it is. Yeah. But yeah, it's fun. And fishing, I go fishing all the time.
How does that go?
It's good. Yeah, I like fishing. It's always catch and release, so I've never actually brought fish home.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed in that.
Goodness. I always have to provide for this family. I'm the hunter and gatherer of this family.
So then, as far as dating, what is... So one of the things that are getting that I think is getting so many people in trouble, or is getting so many people in trouble in our country and in our culture and society today, is that they're having premarital sex, and they're ending up many times pregnant. Yeah. And then you have the whole abomination of abortions and things like that. So then, what would you tell girls about that?
Well, when I started dating Garrett, I was like, okay, I of course let him know. I'm like, I'm saving myself for marriage. And he said, okay, cool. Like, I am too. And so I'm like, great. So that was kind of already set. That was already known. Okay. And so when girls are looking for guys to date and they don't let them know their intentions, and if the guy's intentions aren't the same, it's not going to work out. Because to be honest, like, guys want to have sex, whatever it is, right? And if girls aren't very headstrong about it and they don't have it set in them that they're waiting till marriage, it's hard to stay on track about it. You know what I mean? It's hard to not fall into premarital sex if you're not headstrong in it. And so you have to be that way before you even start talking to a guy, especially in high school, especially in college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we've known that. And so we've dated 4 years, and it's crazy because it's like when I tell my friends, I'm like, yeah, no, we don't have sex. And they're like, what? There's a good handful of friends that are like, what? That's crazy. And I'm like, yeah, because it's so normalized.
Yes.
For young people to have sex all the time.
It also helps that
especially
both
in
of you-
college.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
true. It also helps that both of you live at home.
Yeah, yes.
And
And so when people say, oh, you're not going to move in with him, like before you get married? And I'm like, no, why would I? We're going to live together for the rest of our life. Why would I want more time to live with him? And they're like, that's when you learn, how they live, and that's when you learn compromise. And I'm like, no, I think you learn compromise when you get married. Like, that's the whole point of marriage, is learning to compromise. When you did that before, it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
And I'm sure people have their reasons, but I'm like, no, we're going to wait till we're married and then we're going to live together. And that's when we're going to learn how to compromise. That's where we're going to learn how to live with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Yeah, it
You're gonna
shocks
live
a lot of people.
But you're going to live here first, right?
No, Dad. No. No, not me. Yeah.
I'll come back, Dad.
Nolan wants to come back. That's why Terry took all the stuff out of that room.
Yeah,
So they can't move
sure.
back in.
When I move out, that's going to be their baby's room, too.
He's got a whole little room. They got a whole little suite back there. Don't have to pay rent no more.
Nope.
Yeah.
And then what do you think about, because there's a lot of debate about long dating, like dating a long time or getting married quickly, getting married before you finish college or after? What do you think?
For me, it's definitely, you need to get married when you finish college. Maybe not right after, but I think you
But not
need to get
before,
through
you
school.
mean? You're saying not get married before.
Yes, exactly.
And why is that?
I think it's just because when you're single, or when you're not married, which is whatever, single, and you're going through school, you're so much more driven than if you were going to get married, and you have so many more other things that are preoccupying you. And so when you're single and that's all you're doing is working, going to school, working and going to school. That's, if you just get through that, because college is the stress and storm of your life. I think it's 15 through 25 is called the stress and storm of your life. If you can just get through that and then settle down, get married, and you have all that money saved up, that's just a smarter way to do it, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm sure other people have different reasons, for money-wise, they can help each other out or whatever it may be, but I don't need that. I don't need help.
Right.
And I'm not trying to sound conceited, but I'm just saying, I don't need to live with someone just for him to help me pay through college.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't need my help.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons I think people want to get married. Maybe not the only reason, but just one of them, I would think. I don't know why someone would want to get married before college.
Usually, nowadays, like we're saying, they don't even get married. They're just living together.
They're just living together.
Yeah, a lot of them. But the ones that do, I think it's a mistake also. I think it's a mistake to get married. Let's just say in traditional Christian value system where you would marry because one reason is because you're wanting to abstain from fornication. So that's one reason why Christians would. So a Christian young couple might say, we're we're worried that we might fall into sin. We might go into sin and fornicate and start have sex before we're married. So we're better, like the Bible says, you're better to marry than to burn. He doesn't mean burn in hell, but it's better to marry than to have this issue with sex. So that's one reason why someone might do it. And it's worked out for some. I had Adam Newman on the podcast, and his parents, that's what they did. So they got married young, and then she worked, and he worked cutting lawns and put her through college. And then she worked at her career and put him through college. And then when he got out of college, he got a job at a good job then. And then she quit work and had children. And that's how they did it. I've always, I mean, that took a lot of discipline, right?
Yeah.
And a tremendous amount of discipline, because what ends up happening with a lot of young people is they don't have that kind of discipline in their life. And so they get married and they end up stuck in jobs that that isn't going to provide the way they
Yeah.
want to. It's not the job they want to do for life, but they're stuck there for life.
Yeah.
Because they have a family all of a sudden, they have kids, they don't have the discipline to plan their life in that way. And honestly, I understand what they did, and I've always respected it immensely. But I think anybody with that amount of discipline could also have the discipline to say, we're going to not have sex, we're not going to sleep together, and we're going to finish college, and then we're going to get married and do it that way. It would work
Yeah.
either way, but that discipline would work either way.
Yeah.
They did it their way, which is I'm not
admirable.
criticizing.
I admire that, but I don't know. For me, I always had it in my mind that I was not going to get married until I finished school. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's just like junior college. Like I just
I
finished
thought
junior
we had
college
an
and I'm in.
agreement at 32 you could get married.
No. I did not have that agreement with you. Yeah, so many people tell me like, no, you need to wait till you're 30. I'm like, what? No.
Why don't you want to wait till you're 30?
Because I want at least one kid before I'm 30. I want to get married and have at least one kid before I'm 30. Yeah. So we'll see.
Does Garrett know about these plans?
Yeah. He doesn't want kids.
No?
Mm-mm.
Why not?
I don't know.
Have to
Yeah.
get him on the podcast and ask him that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think he will.
I
but
said that too.
You said you didn't want kids?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And?
They ruin everything, and he
That's what he
does. They do ruin everything. I was right. No, they're great.
Yeah.
He's okay.
And now you like him a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, depends. This morning I liked him a lot. He woke up real happy. Normally he doesn't like me. It's hilarious. And I'll be holding him and he's happy. I mean, just laying there.
Yeah.
She'll give him to me and he freaks out and starts kicking and screaming and clawing. I give him back and then he rolls into her arms. So he just doesn't like me. I think he senses my frustration with him.
So with the I was going to ask you. When you're so how would I put this? With dating and then marriage and everything, what do you think? What do you think young girls ought to be looking for in a guy?
They just need to be. They just need to have good work ethic. They need to be smart, and I think they have to have the same religious values as you, because otherwise there's gonna come so many problems with that, and I know that. And they have to, for me, it was like he had to be a good person, and I didn't want him to be nice just to me. I want him to be a good person to everyone else. I knew that if he was someone that everyone liked, that especially with the adults. So for Garrett, all the adults love him because he's just so kind and he's very easy to talk to, whatever. And that's just admirable to me. And so, yeah, I just think it's the basic things that I think every girl knows to look for in a guy, but for some reason tend to not want to.
I don't know if they know that.
They have to.
I don't know if they do.
They have to. How can they not? How can they look at a guy and say, oh, I can't wait to support him. I can't wait to financially help him. Like how? How do girls do that?
Well, they do. That's why I'm asking
crazy.
you. It is crazy. I don't know why.
I don't know.
But it's so many of them
Yeah.
that end up with losers.
Yeah. I mean, I have my best friend. She got pregnant in college, and the guys that she dates, I'm calling her out because she's fine because she can take it. She just chooses like the most like crazy guys, and I'm like, I don't understand your mentality. And she knows better, and I tell her, and I'm like, like y'all. You're either, when you're dating someone, you're either just gonna not date him, you're gonna break up, or you're gonna marry him. Like you're dating to marry or you're dating just to break up. which is nothing. And I'm like, so why would you choose these guys that you know are not good for you? And she's like, well, I don't know. I think I can help them. I think I can fix them. And that's girls' mentality.
That is girls' mentality.
Is they think they can change the guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not possible.
Yeah, I heard a psychologist say that they did a study to see what are the kind of, like in women's fantasies, what characters they most love or most like, and it's like pirates, vampires, billionaires, like bad boy billionaires. I forget what they are. They're like 5 of them, and they're all like these ridiculous things.
I think their head is just too caught up in like movies and like it's so, I don't know, like their mentality is just so like fictionalized. Like they just, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird, but
it is. That's why I think it's so important that parents, and especially fathers with their daughters, try to instill in them a sense of reality, which is what I've always tried to do with you and with all 3 of my children, is to try to instill in them a real grounded sense of what's real in life, and that not live in a fictional world. And so I know a lot of people thought I was probably, and I may have been overboard on that, and that life was very real in our house. So you know, we never had dogs that went to heaven.
No, there was never a Santa.
There was never Santa.
Never an Easter bunny.
Or tooth fairy.
No tooth fairy. No, our tooth fairy was a string and pliers. Yeah, no, nothing was sugar-coated for us either.
No.
I
think it's a huge mistake to do that. I think and I don't think that if you tell your kids that there's a Santa Claus that you're like ruining them for life. But it's the whole. To me, and this is just my view. And I'm like, again, I'm not a professional in any of these things, so maybe I'm wrong on this. But it seems to me that when you create this fictional world for them, you're not preparing them for the real world. You're preparing them for a world that doesn't exist. And people say, well, when they're kids, kids are adults in preparation. And when you create a fictional world for them, I don't see that this benefits them at all. I don't find any benefit to believing in Santa Claus at all in life. I see no benefit in it whatsoever. It may be fun, but fun's not a benefit. Yeah. Fun isn't a value.
And you know what? Even when growing up not knowing that none of that was real, I never grew up like so distraught over like, oh, my parents never gave me like the fun that other kids did, the magic. Never once did that cross my mind. I was never like, man, I wish my parents would have like lied to me and told me Santa was real, and then had to break it to me and crush all my dreams. Like that was never a thing that went through our head, Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't care, or I don't think it's terrible that parents do that. But at the same time, it's my life wasn't destroyed because
I I had 2 things when on Christmas and on Santa Claus, but on where what happens when they die? Did the dog die, or did he go on a long trip, or whatever? Yeah. Like we never had like a fish, but I know a lot of parents will like the fish will die and they go buy one that looks identical, so the kid don't know about death. I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, here, that's your fish. You flush it down the toilet. So I had two main things that I thought about and that motivated me. One is I wanted them to, like I said, to live in a world that was real, not a fictional world, right? And then the other thing was I wanted you guys to know that I never lied to you. Yeah. I may be wrong on things. I may say something and it's not true, it's not right, but it isn't because I know it's not right.
It wasn't intentional.
I always told you the truth as far as I could know on every single thing. Yeah. I wanted my kids to know that if I'm telling you something, that is exactly what I believe. Yeah. That's exactly what I believe to be true. Yeah. I am not sugarcoating it. I'm not slightly, weighting it one way. I am giving you the unvarnished truth as closely as I can on everything. And to me, being honest isn't something you can do just selectively. So you can't say, well, I'm honest with my kids on the things that matter. And then on these other things, like, for instance, in my opinion, on Santa Claus. But don't you think
kids would view them a little bit differently, when they tell them, and it's like, oh, like, you lied to me until I was like 5 or 6?
I don't know that they would. And I don't know
either.
I don't know. And I'm willing to say no, they probably wouldn't, and they'd understand it or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm not necessarily saying that kids are going to think, oh, my parents are liars, even though I probably would have. So if my parents done that because of the way I think, yeah, I would have thought, you big liars. You can't be trusted on anything. That's probably how I would have thought. But no, I don't know if kids do.
Yeah.
But my thing is that this is what I'm saying, that you can't be selectively honest and have a reputation, not a reputation, but have for your kids to have a psychological state of being that they know their parents are always honest.
Yeah.
It's not something that's not something that you think about consciously. In other words, if you have to think consciously, does my husband ever lie to me, or does my friend ever lie to me? Well, then the answer is yes, they do. Right? It has to be an automatic thing. It's like, would your parents lie to you? And I wanted my kids' automatic response in their own minds to be never.
No.
Not one time. No matter how hard the truth was, I always got the truth right down the center of the plate, unvarnished, unadorned. It always was. It may have been not accurate, but it wasn't because they were trying to deceive me.
And I think that mentality kind of runs with me to this day, just because like when I was thinking about going to university and I wanted to stay at the dorm and I was going to have this great experience, I knew like, I was like, that's so unrealistic. Like, if you really think about it, I'm going to have to worry about buying toilet paper. I have to worry about buying bed sheets. And like, I'd rather not do that. I'd rather not spend every dime just to have this college experience and be broke and be sad because, you know, I'm living it with my parents in high school my whole life. And then all of a sudden I'm thrown out into the college, you know, dorm and have to worry about all these expenses. And it's just like your world just kind of flips upside down. And that's why so many people have moved back. That's why so many people go back to junior college, because it's crazy. It hits them right in the face. And that's why it gets under my skin when people are like, people who are 20 years older than me or 15 years older than me, and they're like, oh, well, when I was your age, I moved out and I had my own life and you need to learn how to be independent. And it's like, okay, but how much was college 15, 20 years ago?
That's true.
You know?
And my thing is, and this is what we talked about when you were really wanting to do that. And I've told you, I don't know if you remember, but what I told you and what I advise parents to tell them is, what I told you was, you're welcome to do that, right?
Yeah.
You're an adult, and if you want to move out, you can, but I'm not going to support you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I'll help pay for the college that I would have paid for. I was willing to do that. So like whatever junior college would have been, I'll pay that amount. Yeah. And then everything else is on you. So your car insurance. And it wasn't because I was trying to pressure you to make the decision I wanted you to make. Yeah. It's because if you want to be an adult, or you want to be independent.
You educated me on how debt can run your entire life.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I knew that if I moved out and I paid for everything, and I could have done it, right? Because I know people that have worked 3 jobs and went to school and paid for it, and that's incredible. Yeah. But I also didn't want to have student loans. I wasn't going to have financial aid. I didn't want student loans, and I didn't want to graduate with debt. I didn't want debt to follow me throughout my entire life.
Yeah. There's people that have debt till their 60s from college debt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we're in like, what, $1.5 trillion in debt and student loans.
I think it's more than that now.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's just crazy. I'm like, I just wasn't going to do that. And I don't see it as a downfall just because I decided to go to junior college and I'm commuting from home. And I feel like so many people not so many people, but a lot of people and people that I've talked to, you know, I feel like I was reluctant to tell them like, oh, well, I just decided to go to junior college just because a lot of people in my family and
it doesn't have the prestige.
Are like, really? Like, you're smart and you're not going to go to university? Like, what? And it's like, well, no, like, and so I felt like reluctant. I think that's why a lot of people just are like, well, I'm going to university. Like, I'm not going to go to junior college. That's too low for me. And I think that should change. I don't think that should be a mentality that people have anymore.
I agree completely. And so like I was saying, so, you know, the thing was, I wanted you, if a child, and it's not just you, I tell parents this all the time, if your kid is of adult age, he's 18 or whatever, and he wants to move out, I don't think that's bad. That's fine.
No,
I have
exactly.
no problem.
Yeah.
But you can't create it fictionally,
Yeah.
which is what parents do when they're providing car insurance, paying tuition, giving them food, money
Yeah.
for food. Well, they're giving him a fictional adulthood. It's not real. They're not paying
Yeah.
for anything, right? And that was what I wasn't going to let you do. So if you wanted to say, look, I'm my own person, I think you even said that once, I'm an adult and I can do what I want. You're absolutely right. But you're going to do it yourself then.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay
Yeah.
the money for you to pretend you're an adult. So if you're going to be an adult, you're going to be a real adult, right? You move out, you take over your own car insurance, which is going to be like $600 a month or $500 a month at that
Yeah.
age. You're gonna pay your own stuff, and I will pay what I would have paid when you were at home, and that's it. Not counting those things. Now you stay at home. I said I'll pay for your junior college. I'll pay for your car insurance.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay rent. You never had to pay rent as long as you
Yeah.
were going to school.
And then that gave me the ability to work
That's right.
more than I would have if I would have moved out and save money.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, and what we also told you was, you get through your prerequisites, you get through your first 2 years of
Yeah.
junior college,
Yeah.
and if you want to go to UTSA,
Yeah.
well, then we'll be glad to look into that.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't see the rationale behind spending all that extra
And that's
money
the
to
thing.
take the same
Yeah,
classes.
exactly.
That nobody in
It's
a job.
all about, especially when you're graduating high school, it's all about being able to say, oh, I just signed Texas Tech. I'm going to Texas Tech. I'm going to UT.
It's the
A&M.
prestige.
It's all about the name. It's all about that.
Yes.
That's all it is about.
At that point, it is. Now, I see
Yes.
great value, depending on there are universities that are much better, have better professors, they have better
Oh, absolutely.
better
Yes,
programs for
yes.
certain things. So if you want to
Yes.
be in,
But when it comes to prerequisites,
no, it makes no
it does
difference.
not matter. And
It
so I
doesn't.
understand going to junior college, right, and working your butt off and getting a 4.0, whatever, right? And then from there, you have a better chance getting into A&M, UT, Tech, whatever it may be, if you didn't do that well in high school. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it really is beneficial.
Yes.
And you're just not spending as much money. And
That's
then
right.
you have 2 years to go to A&M or wherever it may be,
Yeah, you
and
find
like
a
I
college
said before,
that is.
I mean, some people are fortunate enough to have parents that can afford to send their kids to whatever university they want, basically. And
Right.
that's a whatever.
I
But
think it's still a mistake because I still think it's a mistake because I think you're teaching these young people, you're teaching these young adults the wrong lesson in life. That it doesn't matter how much money you have. There are places where it's like if you went out and you have an option to buy 2 identical cars and one costs 3 times more. Mm-hmm. Well, it's stupid to buy the one that costs 3 times more if it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're right. You're not making a good value decision there, a good value determination at that point, or value judgment.
Yeah.
And that's the type of teaching that is. So when you have these junior colleges that are giving you exactly what you need at that time
Yeah,
for a lot
yeah.
less money,
And it's just the beginning, it's just the start of it. And
That's
then where
right.
you end is great.
and
if
then you
decide-
assess every semester. You can assess and say, where I want to go in life,
Yeah.
what gets me there the best, and
Yeah.
you go making those. And this isn't just like me saying this, who hasn't been to college. I've listened and read college educated professionals, people with even doctorates, who say the same thing,
Yeah.
who tell kids, don't go for the prestige of this name university when you don't need it.
Yeah.
Go to junior college, get your first 2 years out of the way, then
Right.
look and see what college provides the best
And
path to
another
where you want to
benefit
go.
about it is when you're working and going to college is if you were to get if you're all about the grades and you ended up getting a C in a class, but you go if you go to grad school and they ask you, they're like, well, why'd you get this C or a couple C's, and it's like, well, I was working 40 hours a week. Like, I'm not like all these kids who just, or not all of them, but some of them who just go straight to school. Like, I was working this many hours. Not me. I don't get C's. But if it were someone else, whatever. They're more understanding. They're like, oh, okay, so you didn't just go to school and that's all you did. You were actually working. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
when they find out that you're working and going to school, it sets you up a little bit higher than kids who just go to school.
I think so too.
And I realize there are kids who take a lot of classes a semester, and that's all they are. And
No,
they
they're
don't
really
have time
working
for it.
at school.
Exactly. That's great.
Yeah.
Whatever. Do what you got to do. You're getting out of college. You're probably going to have a great career. But for me, it was just different. You know, what I'm going in, which is dental hygiene, it's not the most challenging, career path there is. So that's why I was able to take, a little bit fewer classes and work more hours.
Right.
So.
And why are
It
you
just
going
depends
in?
on what
Why
you're
are
doing.
you wanting to go into dental
Hygiene? I don't know. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do until like junior year when I was working with you over the summer. We went to UT. Remember that?
Yeah, we worked
And
at
we worked on the
at the
lockers.
oral.
Yes, exactly. We worked in the dental
oral.
hygiene
Yeah.
place, and I was like, I don't know. I just was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I don't know. They get to like fix teeth, and I love the campus, and I don't know. And so that's when I went home that night and I looked into it, and as I just decided to go into dental hygiene, and so that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
And so, how much longer do you have to go for that?
Right now I'm doing dental assisting. So I'm going to be a dental assistant for a couple years. Just because when you're applying to dental hygiene school, they kind of recommend you to be a dental assistant first. And it helps because I want to make sure this is something that I'm going to enjoy before I go and spend all that money on dental hygiene school.
Right.
So dental assisting is an easy job to get. Everyone's looking for them. So I'm going to dental assisting school and I have like a couple more months. And then I'll go into dental hygiene. So, yeah, I'm excited.
That is interesting.
Yeah. It's a good, sweet
Well,
deal.
very good.
Yeah.
What's up?
I think we have a few comments. Yesenia, sorry, I don't think we'll be able to answer your question in Spanish. You want to hear my sister's Spanish.
Oh, no.
So we'll have to skip that
Well,
one.
give me the question.
Yeah.
It's in English. I'm not sure I understand it very well. I think what she's asking is what do you think about a person who has sex before they get married and then compromise later to get married?
Hold on, let me see. What do you think about a person have sex before they get married, but they do it with a person they plan to get married to? I think what she's asking is, what do you think about in other words, basically living with the person you're planning to marry? Is that
Right.
What do you think about that? You're having sex with the person, but you're planning to marry them. I think that's what they're asking. And Yesenia, if you want to ask the question in
Is that
Spanish,
Is that Yetzel?
no, Yesenia.
Yesenia from Pachuca.
Oh,
Yesenia. If you want to ask the question in Spanish, I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're asking. So if I'm not asking the question to Kirsten the way you meant, you can ask me in Spanish. Yeah, ask the question in Spanish, and I will see what I can do.
And then you have a question from Suzanne Fields. What if your person is adamant that they do not want children?
Oh, she's asking because about how Garrett says he doesn't want children, and
Is
Yeah.
that mostly kind of just like he just kind of says that, or?
that for him, it's not something that he's passionate about.
But her
at
question
all.
is, what do you
But
think?
what if he were?
What if he were?
What if he
exactly.
were? So, shoot. Honestly, I think that's a conversation that you should have probably not right away, just because you're not 100% positive you're going to marry him, blah, blah, blah. But then when it gets to that point, and if that's something that you are passionate about, that I want 4 kids. Like if I don't have 4 or more kids, whatever. But for me, I'm different. Like I want kids, but I'm okay with having 1 or 2. And I know that Garrett will have kids when it comes down to it. And so it just depends, I think, to each his own. Like if you are so passionate, like for my cousin, right? She loves kids, and she's been wanting kids since she was a little kid, and that was something that she's passionate about. So she goes and looks for a guy that wants the same thing. For me, it wasn't a big deal. That was not in my mindset, is to look for someone that wants a lot of kids. It just wasn't.
Right.
Because I'm not a huge kid person. I don't plan on having 12 kids, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would like kids. I mean, but there's been times where I'm thinking, do I really want kids? There's been times where I'm like, I don't think I want kids. You know what I mean? It changes for me. So unless you're headstrong on it, then I wouldn't worry about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Brett Carpenter says that you found a gold person that everybody likes. Good thing your mom didn't have that same criteria.
Oh, no. Yeah. But you know what's funny, though, is that Garrett reminds me of Dad.
Yeah.
But the nice version of me?
No. See, Garrett's like the golden egg, and you're more of like the copper, the copper one. No, he reminds me of you in a lot of ways. It's funny because he's very realistic. He's so like grounded. Yeah, very, and he's very humble. But he's just he reminds me of you. Sometimes in a bad way, but most of the time it's a good way.
She asked a question in Spanish.
Okay, let me see. Okay, let me see what she says. Que si piensa de las personas que tienen sexo antes de casarse, pero lo hacen con la persona con que planean casarse. Right, that's what I thought. Yeah. Your English was good. I just wanted to be sure that we were getting the question right. It's actually very good. So the only thing, la única cosa, Yesenia, es que compromiso in in Spanish, is not the same word as compromise in English. That's one of those words like pregnant embarrassed and embarazado. So embarazado in Spanish means to be pregnant, but it doesn't mean embarrassed, which means to be ashamed, which is an interesting thing. So compromise and compromiso aren't actually the same word. Compromise means to hacer tregua, not to hacer convenio, it actually basically means the opposite. Anyway.
But she's asking what if you're having sex with someone but you plan on marrying them?
Yeah, you're engaged with someone you're engaged to.
Well, the problem with that is you're going to fight pregnancy.
Well, that is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, there's no contraceptive that's 100% guaranteed. So you're always fighting the risk of getting pregnant before marriage, and that can cause just having a baby, being pregnant in general is so complicated, and it's going to cause a lot of problems in your relationship. I mean, maybe not always, whatever, there's certain circumstances, but to me, that was like a huge thing. When I turned 20, I was like, I'm beat teen pregnancy.
I know, she came out.
I'm so excited.
We were in the kitchen and she came out celebrating that she beat teenage pregnancy.
Yeah. I was like, I beat teen pregnancy. And that's actually a big deal now.
It's huge.
It's because so many girls are getting pregnant.
If we only look at it from a moral perspective, or not looking at it from a biblical perspective and what God would say about it, just looking at it from a completely passionless or valueless perspective in that way, teenage pregnancy is the number one driver of poverty. And this doesn't mean that there's no exceptions, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't want any one person to feel like I'm attacking them, okay? Because it doesn't mean it's you. Yeah. But the majority of unwed mothers are going to live their life poor. That's just statistics.
Yeah.
The majority of unwed mothers are going to be poor. If we wanted to really end poverty, we would work harder at ending unwed motherhood, because that's what's driving it. And is driving it for both men and women. Because you end up with these men who think, well, there's no consequence for me. I'm not the one getting pregnant. And there is a lot less consequence for them. But in our government, they go after them. They garner their wages, which means they end up having to get jobs where they don't get paid on the books, because then they take away half their money and I'm not against that. I mean, they have to support their children. Right. I'm just saying it is this. I'm an employer, and I have guys that work for me. Not at the moment, but I've had people that work for me that I have to take 50% of their wages and send it to the state every week. 50% of their income. They can never get ahead. Yeah. And I'm not feeling sorry for them. They went and had children. It's not that. So don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm going, oh, this is terrible for men. Right. It's terrible for everybody. Yeah. It's a horrible situation.
Because there are some, though, married couples who get pregnant accidentally, and they still are struggling financially. So it just depends. Like, oh yeah, you know what I mean?
No, it's kids human babies are incredibly expensive.
They're expensive.
Incredibly expensive. Yes. And incredibly, it's not just in money that's spent, but all the time. All the time. It is nonstop, and it's the time taken away from the mother
who has to take
maternity
leave. And then that's That's
Well,
it.
yeah,
She's not working.
That's
you know?
right.
She's working, but she's not working. She's not making money
her
from
career.
it.
Yeah, her career is
And
on
like
hold.
my best friend who got pregnant in college, she was very fortunate enough to have a father to take her in and let her live at home, where she's not paying rent, she's not doing any of that. She's just paying for the baby's food and things like that, right? That comes out of her money. But if it wasn't for her dad to lean on, or her parents,
Yeah.
right, where a lot of girls, I know girls who gotten pregnant and have nowhere to go because their parents
Yeah.
won't accept them. They won't let them move home. And it's so sad.
Yeah.
But she was fortunate enough to have that. But if she didn't, she would have, she gets support from the father, right? But it's really not
It's not very
that
much.
much. And just,
No.
not just for her, but just in general.
No, it's not.
It's just not. Child
It's-
support
it's a-
doesn't
That's
bring
what
in
I'm
enough
saying.
money for her to raise a baby.
It's an incredible amount for him, but not
Yes.
nearly enough for her.
No, of course
So
not.
they're both poor.
Yeah.
She doesn't get enough to
I
make
know,
it work,
it's
so she's
crazy.
poor. And I'm not talking about your friend. I'm
No,
just talking
right.
about in
It's in
general.
general.
Yeah, in general.
Yeah.
That the mother doesn't get enough to be a real money for her, but it's too much money for him. So now they're both poor.
Yeah.
So the whole system makes everybody poor.
Yes,
It's just and
exactly.
that's just looking at it that
That's
way.
one of the reasons too is why when I was discussing with Garrett, I was like, I am not getting pregnant. I said, aside from it, my morals, whatever it may be, I cannot afford and I will not get pregnant. That terrifies me more. That terrifies me more than anything. And then after seeing my best friend get pregnant, I was like, well, I'm definitely not getting pregnant. I mean, it's the best thing that ever happened to her, but because she's so happy about it. But for me, I just couldn't.
Well, it's not the best thing that
No,
happens to
what I'm saying
anybody.
is like she loves the baby more
Right.
than life, but
and that's one thing
what
that we have
I'm
to
saying.
realize, that you can compartmentalize.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I can see and say, I want to give you an example, and this is a very extreme example. Ahorita voy a contestar la pregunta como lo dijo Kirsten Yesenia. Permítame un segundo. This would be an extreme example of what I'm trying to say, and that is, I have heard women who have been raped, which is it's unconscionable and horrible, but they were raped. They ended up being pregnant by that way, and they decide not to abort the baby, and they had the baby, and they have said, in some ways, when they look at the child, it's like the best thing that ever happened to them, in the sense that, not the rape, and this is where it's, I want to be very careful here. What they're saying is, I can't imagine my life without this child in my life. Not that I think that how it happened is great. Now, I know not all of them think that way, but it was very impacting for me to listen to a couple testimonials I heard from women in that situation.
Who didn't have an abortion?
They did not have an abortion. They had the child. They still raised the child.
Wow.
And that, I don't know. I don't know that I could do it. This is not any kind of statement. I was just very amazed by what they were saying. It was like, wow, I don't know. That's just crazy. But my point is that just because we look at one aspect of our life and say, this is great in my life, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have done something differently. You see what I'm
No,
saying?
I understand
And that's what
that.
I mean. So, like, in a situation that isn't nearly as horrific as that, where you had consensual sex and it was you thought you loved the person or whatever, you
Yeah.
end up pregnant, and you say, well, I got this child. I love this child more than my life itself, so I don't regret it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You can compartmentalize that. You can
Yeah.
say, I don't regret the child. The person himself I love more than life, but I regret all the actions that took me
Right.
there. You can do both.
No, I agree. But I also think there are people who have kids and it straightens them out. I think that there are people that
yeah.
go so downhill in their single own life and they have a kid and it makes them work harder. It makes them understand that they are responsible for their kids'
I know
well-being.
cases where women in that situation have been rebellious to God, and because of that have come back. So,
Yeah.
but again, we can compartmentalize that. You don't necessarily have to say you have to do that to get there.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to
But
compartmentalize.
sometimes I think that's what does bring them to church.
It is what did, but they could have done it otherwise. Why? It's like why do we have to get whacked in the head to think right? Why not just think right? Now, sometimes we have to get whacked in the
Yeah.
head, but we shouldn't think of that then as like somehow the
greatest blessing.
Yeah, well, let's just whack everyone in the head. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Why don't we learn as people and
I
learn
think it just
to.
happens to have turned out that way.
Well, no, I think it was because of that, but there is another way to get there. You can actually just be wise, which is what I'm saying, that every one of us has learned because we got whacked in the head for somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But what we need to do is not just learn that lesson, but learn how to learn the lesson without the whack in the head, right?
Yeah.
That's wisdom. Smart is learning, you get hit in the head and you learn. That's smart. Wisdom is not only learning because you got whacked in the head, but then also extrapolating, saying, hey, if I would have changed my behavior before, I would have been in the same place I am now without the big old bump on my head.
Yeah.
That's wisdom, and that's what people need. Let me answer Yesenia real quick. Lo que Kirsten dijo, su respuesta era que una de las cosas que hay que considerar es que no hay contraceptivos que son 100% eficaces. Entonces, es un gran problema cuando mujeres llegan a ser embarazadas antes de casarse. Es la causa principal de la pobreza en el mundo oeste. Es mujeres embarazadas sin estar casadas. Entonces es muy importante que estas mujeres que piensan es que estoy teniendo sexo, pero con mi comprometido y vamos a casarnos, primero tienen que ver que si salen embarazados antes de casarse, están poniendo en peligro su vida económica. Esa es una de las cosas. La respuesta también que yo agregaría a eso es que, primero es, Dios dice que es pecado. Entonces, decir que es mi comprometido no es algo que te absuelve de la culpabilidad del pecado, ni el hombre ni la mujer. Entonces, siempre hay que tener en mente eso. La otra cosa es, planes cambian. Uno no es casado hasta que está casado. Mientras que no estás casado, no eres casado. Y en mi opinión, es algo que no me gusta del anacronismo de tomar el compromiso de tiempos anteriores, cuando había una causa para tenerlo, y querer mezclarlo con el sistema moderno, la paradigma moderna del matrimonio como es ahora. En realidad, comprometido ya no tiene sentido. No hay sentido ya de tener compromisos a matrimonio. Entonces, lo único que eso produce es que gente cree que tienen algún derecho de matrimonio sin ser casados. Entonces, eso es lo que yo diría. I don't know if you understood. I don't know if you understood what I said. Well, I added an answer. I gave her your answer. But the reason why I think that there's two reasons I would say about her question. What's wrong with having sex with your fiancé is what she's basically asking.
Right.
If that would be wrong. And I like your answer. I would add on. One is it's still sin. Mm-hmm. If you're saying you're not married, and you're having sex, it's sin. We cannot. As Christians, that cannot be. That can't be swept under the rug. The other thing, though, is that I would add beyond that is plans always change. So if you're not married, it can always change. Absolutely. You're thinking, we're engaged.
Anything can happen.
Yes, and all of a sudden you're not married, and now you have.
And then imagine getting pregnant and things changing.
Yes, and then now you're not going to get married after all. Whatever, he's changed. You don't like. When a woman gets pregnant, she starts thinking differently. So a lot of women,
Absolutely.
like you were talking about, they like these bad boys.
Yeah.
They like these rebels.
Yeah.
They like these.
And then they realize, he can actually support me. He can actually.
Right, or he's not he's not dad material.
Video games. Exactly.
Yeah, that's not who I want raising my child.
Yeah.
And they get pregnant, and a woman thinks very differently many times than when she's not pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Before she's pregnant. And then you're not married, and he thinks differently also, right? Men are much more interested in sex than they are in fatherhood, many of them. And all of a sudden now he's not looking at sex, he's looking at no sex and fatherhood. Mm-hmm. And so he thinks differently. And so then there is no marriage, right? Which is what I think is a problem with this whole engagement idea. I don't like engagements. I think they're wrong. I think, yes, you didn't know that. You're not allowed to get engaged.
What are you talking about?
Right. So engagements are an anachronistic feature of our society. There was a time when engagements made sense, where you would like promise, we're going to get married, and it was like a legal commitment to marriage. That's why you actually give them a ring, right? And it's basically, it is a legal commitment. You're essentially married when you're engaged. This is going back a long time ago. And that's because marriage was very hard to do. People lived at long distances. They were getting their wives many times from a long ways away. And so they would get engaged, which means they basically are saying, we're married in every way, we're just not together yet because of the distances they lived or whatever. There were legal and social reasons for it. There's no reason for engagement today. There just isn't. There's no purpose to it. It's traditional. The only thing that engagements produce now is a sense of ownership. So it's like, we're engaged, so you're practically my wife, so I have right
really
to you.
not yet.
But you're not in your own mind. See, back when engagements were necessary and a feature, an actual usable feature in society, they were married. I mean, they were actually like buying things or getting things that marriage wasn't easy. I mean, you actually had to have like a piece of land, or you had to have your little house. I mean, you couldn't just. It was already your family lived in a 2-room house with 12 kids. You're not living there. You had to, but you couldn't do it separately, and so there were real reasons for an engagement. There are no reasons for an engagement today. We do it because it's traditional. Huh?
It is kind of weird.
It is.
But
it's like you date for 5 years and then you get engaged for 2 years and then you get married. It's like, what's the engagement for? Well, in our current society, what it's for is to get people, it makes people think they have ownership over the person, when in fact, in their minds, they're not really married.
So the way I've always seen engagement, my whole life, this is just, I've never heard you say this before, but when you get engaged, that's the time where you're like, okay, so we're getting married. That's when you plan out the wedding.
But that would be a very short engagement.
What do you mean?
Right. That's like what, 6 months of engagement?
No. It takes like a year.
A year to do
yes,
what?
To plan a wedding.
Oh my goodness. No, it doesn't. I can do it in a month. I can do it in a week.
I did mine in 3 months.
Because you'd probably do it in this office if it were up to you. No. To book a venue, you have to do it a year in advance, or you will not get the venue that you want. Weddings are so hyped up.
Well, see, I think that's a mistake to begin with. It's all about the venue,
and so people get engaged, and they don't get married till a year after.
But see, I think that's a mistake also, to put that much money and that much
but that's a different
into
conversation.
a wedding.
That's a separate conversation. I think it is too, and I would never spend $45,000, which is what some venues cost today. $40,000 to $50,000 on a venue. I would never do that. But I do think I'm typical in that way, where I think the wedding is like the biggest night. You're celebrating two people coming together, spending the rest of their life together. And I think there should be
And how many of those people spend the rest of their life together, statistically?
I think it's like 1 in 3.
So
is it 1 in 3?
So we're not really celebrating that then, are we?
Okay, but like you don't know. You never know.
No, actually, statistically, you can say you do know.
But you can't say that that's not a big day.
Oh, I didn't say it's not a big day. And I'm not against
I agree with spending a
wedding.
good amount of money on a celebration. I just am, and you're going to have to put up with it.
But you understand what I'm saying the problem with engagement is. And this is what I've always tried to emphasize with you, that I don't want you making a life with anybody until you're actually married. That means I tell young people, don't be buying things together. Don't buy things jointly.
Yeah.
You know, don't go in, not even dishes. Don't buy anything jointly, nothing. You buy your stuff. If you're saying, well, we want to start, like in Mexico, that's a big thing. They want to say we have to get our stuff. We have to get our house together. So they'll buy like washers and dryers and to put in their new house. But they'll buy them jointly when they're not married. I think it's a huge mistake. They start thinking that they're actually somehow really married. And then that leads to sexual sin, because you think you have some ownership there mutually. And I tell them, it's fine to buy the stuff, buy it separately. You buy your stuff, whatever you want. He buys stuff, and you keep it separately. If you don't get married, you have your stuff. There's no thing there, well, we bought all this stuff together. You know how many people I know I won't say, but I know a lot of people personally who got down to the day that they were going to get married and knew they did not want to marry that person, but they had bought so much stuff together, they invested so much jointly, they didn't know how to break that up. They were too invested just in buying stuff. They've told me this. And so they just went through with it, went ahead and got married and regretted it forever and ended up splitting up. Right? Because they couldn't stand the person anymore. They knew it when they got married. They knew it walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
But they had put so much money into it. It is what car salesmen know. When you go buy, you've never done this because you've never bought a car. But if you go to buy a car, especially a new car, the car salesmen want to get you sitting in the car. That's why they'll let you test drive the cars, even though they lose cars every year. People crash them, people scratch them. I mean, there's a lot of risk in letting people drive these cars, test drive them. But they know that if they can get you sitting in the car, smelling the car, driving the car, envisioning yourself being seen in the car,
they're going to follow through with it.
Then you are invested and you've spent their time. So you think, man, I've wasted this guy's time. If I don't buy the car, you feel bad. That's why the car salesman wants to invest all that time in you. I mean, they could just put cars out there like grocery stores put out groceries with a price tag on them. But people won't buy as many cars as if they've dealt with a salesman and felt they've wasted his time if they don't buy the car. So they feel that investment, that commitment, and it's a way that con men use also. And so what I'm saying is Garrett's a con man.
Oh, no. That's what you're getting to.
No. No, I'm joking.
We're about towards the end here because she has work here.
Yeah, okay.
And she'll start freaking out.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I will.
Anyways, okay. So, but you see what I'm saying about that? And so I'm telling you, you can't get engaged.
Yeah. You got that. You can talk to Gary about that.
No, it's not that it's not that I'm trying to change, say, let's not have the word engagement or have some type of a tradition of it. What I'm talking about is this: people will be engaged for like 6 years and have 2 kids. How is that engagement? How is that? We're engaged. And it's like they have 2 kids. They've been living together for 6 years.
But the traditional typical engagement is you get engaged, and then typically a year and a half later, you were to get married. That's the general what it means to be engaged. And that's the time you plan out your whole celebration, everything. And you figure out where you're going to live.
I can see
you get all that. Because then the girl knows, like, they both know that they now officially want to get married and they're going to. So you set a date.
That's when they start making their plans.
Yes, that's what the typical
I don't know how
engagement
typical
is.
that is. That may be the traditional one, which is what I was saying earlier.
I mean, I do know of
there's
women who've been engaged for years and years and years, and they either don't have the money to have the wedding or they just never get around to it. I don't know what it is, but they just never get married, and it's kind of weird. I'm like,
well, yeah.
What's going on?
That's what I'm saying.
So I do know that that's kind of weird, but I don't know.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming into the podcast. It was a lot of fun, and we'll get you on another time.
Okay.
All right. This has been the Freeborn Podcast. We're glad you've been with us. I was here with Kirsten Jackson, my daughter, and we are going to have another podcast on Saturday, and then another one following that on Sunday. And so we actually have quite a few coming up in the next week. We're going to do more of them because we had some time off. But so Saturday at 9 a.m. and then Sunday at, I think, 3 p.m., we're going to have one with Katie Fitzharris will be next Sunday, I think at about 3 p.m. I got to look and see, but it'll be in the afternoon. But Katie Fitzharris will be on, and she's wanting to come on and discuss free speech. I made some comments about freedom of speech and things like that she didn't agree with, and so she wants to come set me straight. And I always like it when people come and set me straight. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be Sunday. And then I have one on Saturday. I'm still working out the details on that, so I won't announce who or what yet, but we will be here on the normal Saturday morning at 9 a.m. So I hope you'll join us. This has been the Freeborn Podcast. My name is Mike Jackson. I'm your host.